Hello, everyone. This is Akeem with the Grande Prairie Local Business Connection Group, and we're here to do an interview with Kalua from Healing Horizons as a psychologist. So let me introduce her to you guys. There you are, Kalua. Welcome.
Hello. Hello.
So I guess we'll get started here. Obviously, we know where we're here. It's just an interview to share with the community about this whole situation with COVID and how it's affecting businesses and what we're doing to make shifts and changes and pivot our businesses. So I guess we'll start with where are you from?
So that's kind of a long story. I consider myself to be from Grande Prairie now. I've been here for 12 years and I'm very invested in this community. I've had my children in this community. My parents have moved to this community since 2015. My husband's family has moved here. We own two businesses here. So I really consider myself a Grande Prairiean. But prior to that, I was from Montreal and I lived there for 6 years. That's where I met my hubby. And prior to that, I was born and raised in West Africa.
Oh,
So I have a long history of being in different places and having different homes.
awesome. Yeah, Grande Prairie tends to be just kind of a gathering of a lot of different people from a lot of places. So I'm the same as you. I moved here in 2013 for work in the oil field at the time, and now I consider myself a Grande Prairiean as well. So awesome. Yeah. So I guess next question is, if you could tell everybody, what is your business and when did you start it?
Okay, so I am the owner and operator of Healing Horizons Inc. I am a registered psychologist here in Grande Prairie in the province of Alberta. I started my practice in 2012 on a part-time basis, and then it grew pretty rapidly, and now I work it full-time. And prior to that, I worked at Pace Sexual Assault Center as a trauma therapist. So I worked in this community now, like I said, for the last 12 years, and but at my private practice since 2012.
So was there a motivation to get into this business? Or let's get a little bit more in depth on your story. What motivated you to do this?
Well, as I mentioned, I was born and raised in West Africa, so I've had kind of this international experience ever since I was little. I've had the privilege and honor of traveling all over the world and living in different places in the US, in Canada, etc. And I think ever since I was a little girl, I was always just fascinated on how people think, what motivates people, different worldviews. And so I think even as a little kid, how people relate to the world and themselves always interested me because of the different cultures that I was exposed to as a little girl. And so when it was time for me to pursue my education, I originally wanted to get into cultural anthropology, which is the study of human culture. But in my studies, I think as it happens for many of us, I came across a psychology class and absolutely fell in love with psychology. And it kind of was just that was it for me. That was the path I knew I needed to take. And in my master's degree that I did at McGill University in Montreal, there was a course in the private practice of psychology. And right back then, all the way back in 2007, I created Healing Horizons Inc. on paper. And that was the name I gave it. And I knew that I was going to one day work out of a wellness center as well. So I did approach Jen Adams and Brett Hessel when they opened the Northwest Wellness Center downtown in Grande Prairie.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that it was there, I approached them and I said, I'd really like to, come on board. And like I said, and then in April of 2012, I started my practice and I've been there ever since.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So obviously you're very keen on helping people. So hopefully we're helping some people here right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So given the current situation with COVID-19 and the spread and all this quarantine, how is the situation affecting your work right now?
Well, right away when I recognized that social distancing and social isolation was necessary, and I think in some ways maybe I was a little bit ahead of the curve on that front. Some psychologists kind of didn't get on board with telehealth as soon as I did, but right away I started exploring different telemedicine platforms and transitioned my practice pretty rapidly to online services as well as phone services. So that's kind of been the biggest shift in how I practice, Normally, of course, I see people in person in my beautiful space in my office.
Mhm.
So now we've transitioned to doing the online kind of format. Also, lots of people have been, laid off, and so there's been difficulties on the financial front. And on a case-by-case basis, I am offering a discounted rate for those who are really in need. So I'm also transitioning in that sense too, to offer some sliding scale rates for people who are really in need.
Right, right. Good, good. And so that's a good note for anybody that needs the service. And it could be, it's not always just people who lose their jobs, but even business owners themselves, who might be struggling with whatever loans they have pending, if their service is being affected by this. I'm sure there's a lot of people that could use your services. So.
Yeah, absolutely. This has taken such a toll on, everyone's mental health and well-being. And so it's really great to get, to stay connected to the resources and supports that you do have. And then at times too, being able to reach out to someone else who's got a fresh perspective and who can offer that support can be really helpful at a time like this.
Yeah, and I know sometimes it helps just to talk to somebody that you don't necessarily know, just to have that sounding board with, not knowing that there's no judgment or anything behind it. It's just, freedom of speech to just communicate how you feel.
That's exactly right. A sounding board, a neutral place, a safe place with someone who, has studied how to support people in times of crisis.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so obviously you've obviously done a good job in pivoting your business and being able to still stay up and running and help people and serve your community. Are there any other changes that you'll be making moving forward from here, or even when things get back to normal, so to speak?
well, I never knew that I would enjoy teletherapy. So one of the things that has been kind of unique about the experience of doing it like this, actually, on this kind of a platform, is that I get a little bit of a sense of what people are like at home. It's a little bit different. It's actually in some ways a little bit more intimate in that way. And I noticed that some of the times people's defenses are down a little bit because they're just in their own space. And so it's something that's been a unique experience that I've actually enjoyed. And also, it's been incredibly convenient for people to tune in to a session with me at home, so they don't have to commute or find parking. That's been really a kind of a cool opportunity. So perhaps moving forward, even after all of this is lifted, for those who might find it more convenient, I might still choose to do some telehealth in this way if they find that easier, just to accommodate to people who struggle to kind of get into my office on kind of a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. So that might be one change I might continue to carry forward.
Awesome. Yeah, and actually, as you're saying all that, I was just thinking about it too. I mean, sometimes, depending on the situation, if somebody's feeling crippling feeling in their mind, just even to get to the car to get to your office could be a challenge, right? So you're actually giving more access. Yeah,
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, that's one of the advantages of telehealth. There's no doubt about it that people who experience and really suffer from anxiety, who do struggle to get out, or severe, clinical depression, it might be an accessibility point that I haven't really considered before. So thanks to COVID,
yeah.
I'm exploring these options, and I might be accessible to more people.
So in a way, and I guess we talked a little bit about this before, it's a blessing in disguise in some ways, right? We're looking for the positive out of the negative, where, well, now it's forced us to look at other ways to serve the community, which is good.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true. Hmm.
Okay, so with that, is there any final thoughts or last comments that you want to make to everybody?
Well, like we just said a moment ago, it's really important, I think, to excavate the blessings. And at times like this, sometimes it's really hard to find the good in the hard times. And I think it's really important for all of us to, focus on self-care, focus on, service, focus on as much as we can gratitude for what we do have. And I think too, one thing I wanted to share with people is that, individuals are going through a grief process, not dissimilar to what we experience when we, go through a loss, like a loss of a loved one, or a death in a family, or even a divorce. There can be stages of grief. And I think it's pretty clear to me that both individuals, as well as on a kind of more collective level, people are going through stages of grief. And just, for those of you listening, or those of you who are supporting people who are really struggling, just recognize that you're gonna go through cycles. And so the first stage really is denial, where you just kind of want to dig your head in the sand. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to deal with it. kind of a state of shock. And then we move into a state of helplessness, a sense of powerlessness, a sense of fear and panic. And those are really normal feelings to experience given, what's going on in our world and in our community as well. So just to normalize and honor that fear. And then the next phase, that fear kind of mobilizes us into action. So taking concrete, meaningful action in the ways that we can, because obviously we can't control, what happens with this pandemic. We can't control who doesn't socially isolate and who does. We can't control a lot of things right now, but we need to take action in the areas that we are, in control of, and focus on what we can create and what we can choose to really, again, feel grateful for. And then after people mobilize into action, there's a lot of energy in that phase. Like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I create? How can I manage this? What loans do I need to apply for from the government? Lots of action. And then after all is said and done, people tend to fall into a state of depression or sadness. Kind of a listlessness can come over you, especially if you're not working. And so I really encourage people who are kind of sinking into that state of depression and sadness to, again, to move their bodies, to really ensure that they're moving, they're getting out, that they're connecting with people, that they're doing things that are really healing and self-caring for themselves, because it's pretty easy to just get stagnant when you're in that place of sadness. And then, the last stage is growth and rebirth. And there's positivity to that often, once you kind of sink a little bit down, then it's time to get back up and see what are the blessings in all this? What can you learn? What are the lessons? So those are the 5 cycles that I've been able to identify both in myself and in my clients. And I think collectively, we're all kind of going through this together. So just take good care of yourselves and be sure to, reach out to your loved ones and move your bodies and reach out to a mental health professional if that's something that you feel that you need, especially if you're noticing that stage 2 fear, panic, or stage 4 depression are really grabbing you and holding on to you. Give me a call.
Yeah, awesome. Well, in that note, before we go, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they need to?
So I do have, I have a couple of different ways that people can get in touch with me. I have a Psychology Today profile. So if you just type in my name, Kalua Rhody, on Psychology Today, you'll find my profile. It gives you the contact information for the Northwest Wellness Center, which is where I work. So you'd call that number there, and the receptionist is actually, during the COVID situation, the receptionist is there just for a couple of hours in the morning from about 8:30 to 10. The best way to contact me is really through that Psychology Today profile. I'm also on TheraVibe, which is another profile for therapists, and also on my Facebook page too, which is Kalua Rhody, R.Psych, which stands for Registered Psychologist, and Healing Horizons Inc. So you can check me out in those places.
Perfect. Well, thanks for sharing with everybody there, Kalua, and really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule.
Thank you, Akeem, and I really appreciate your service in this field as well, and putting this together.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. All right.
Take care.
Take care.